should lullaby.
My original plan was to include deep cuts along with other Loud Tales episodes in my Lincoln Loud sequel video when I discuss the other characters, specifically the Loud Sisters, but with that being scrapped in favor of my current Loud Tales projects, talking about this episode now is for the best, especially comparing it to the Season 9 episode that just been premiered on Nickelodeon in the United States. Stage Combat. I mentioned briefly of this episode in my Naughty or Nice review to well, I was really too harsh to it due to me being at a bad place when it comes to the Loud Tales Christmas movie itself. And for the sake of making things easier, I'm not going to bring up Naughty or Nice whatsoever in this video when it comes to my topics of Stage Combat and the fact that it's a better episode than Deep Cuts, with it having the same main characters with the exception of one main character that doesn't appear in Stage Combat. In Deep Cuts, Luna is afraid that her music club will be cut due to budget problems, and after she protested, she manages to save her club, but this leads to Lori interfering along with Luann later on. In Stage Combat, there's an artist grand competition that Luann and Luna joined, and they agreed early on that they should be bygones, along with the fact that they don't want to get in each other's way, but that all changes once the episode continues on. The biggest difference of these two episodes is that in Deep Cuts, it's all about saving your clubs from being cut, while in Stage Combat, it's about showcasing your talent in the community competition, and yet at the same time, it centers around Luann and Luna at each other's throats as the episode progressed, but that's a major plus in Stage Combat, while in Deep Cuts, Luna, Luann, and Lori get in each other's throats right away due to their clubs being cut, and that's mainly because of the principal herself. But more on that later. Honestly, thinking that this would have been a good Luna Loud episode when it comes to the critiques of this episode several years ago, with this episode officially becoming 6 years old, I always think that if they really wanted the whole saving the club thing to work, they really need to cut down the characters. But since that they include Luann and Lori, it demolishes the goodwill when it comes to clubs facing each other, and regardless of stuff like this does happen when it comes to clubs that desperately want to keep their talents intact, which in some ways I can understand the point of view of Lori, Luna, and Luann in this, but at the same time, since that they are mostly focused on the ideal of just making things a lot more complicated, which is only gaining the approval of Principal Withers, who is mostly responsible in all this, it's really for the best that Luna and Luann carry Stage Combat. The people who worked on this episode are not the same people from Deep Cuts, which says a lot considering that there are new people in studio working on these episodes, but really, that's really what makes this episode good compared to Deep Cuts, and really for the best. It builds up the sibling rivalry between Luna and Luann, unlike in Deep Cuts when it's just thrown into our faces right away. So, all honestly, when you think of how that if you have less characters to work with the main plot, the better it gets, and when it comes to the competition itself, it's way more better than just saving your clubs from being cut. Because with how that message was executed in Deep Cuts, it was poorly executed. Principal Withers is the worst principal in this show. Granted, she's in second place due to Principal Jimenez, but at the same time, the fact that she doesn't cooperate as a principal while her assistant Oliver is more of a principal than her, I honestly don't even know what she is thinking when it comes to saving the clubs and not even understanding the type of donut that she enjoys. I'll admit that the other moments centering around the dumb characters can get on my nerves more than Principal Withers in this episode, but it doesn't change the fact that she didn't lay down the law. Like, I get the meaning that you can't be that nice if you're the boss and you really need to put your foot down in order to restore order, but considering that the majority of schools in this show, along with the Classic Grandes, have a really poor score war system, I'm really convinced that there is literally not a single school on this planet that has a better score system. Truth be told, if Oliver took control as principal rather than being the assistant, none of these events would even happen. And him laying down the law would have actually got into the main character's skulls. Honestly, if the episode did center around just Luna and Oliver is the principal instead of Principal Withers, it would have been a good direction to showcase of what Luna can showcase in front of Oliver, who is a good judgment of material, which, in all honesty, I would probably relate to Principal Withers on like a multiple talents, but you can only pick one, but that also showcases that she isn't qualified on being principal. In stage combat, we get the returning Barag, who appeared in the Season 8 episode centering around Lori and Luann. And as much as I feel like that he didn't do much to make the episode better in this, he's still a better character than Principal Withers, because if he was in charge of the artist grant, he wouldn't be able to make up his mind. I'm just saying that if Barag has managed to be a better friend when it comes to knowing him a little bit more, while you have a principal who is trying to be a friend but at the same time isn't laying down the law, maybe this episode really took inspiration from deep cuts when it comes to those types of personality traits. It's honestly for the best. Granted, Barag isn't a well-known character, especially getting people's attention that they can relate towards, but on the other hand, if they did, they can relate to him more than Principal Withers, if she wasn't the principal. When it comes to Luann in this episode, compared to how she was in Scene Steely, it was really a sacrifice of what have been a Lincoln in Luann episode. And every time I look at Luann in this, honestly, it's not really a big sacrifice to be considered on doing a Luann and Luna episode, but the way I see it, it really seems that when these characters are alone without interacting with the other siblings, they really have their own motivations. Granted, it's not really new. If you remember some episodes that this episode had the same ideals from. But in this episode, when they actually written Luann good, I always think that she really wants to set things right when it comes to her roommate Luna, and Luna willing to do the same, which really makes the build-up of their sibling rivalry really justified. As much as those ideals may have been done before, you had to admit that they're actually willing to make this dynamic between Luna and Luann worked, in comparison to deep cuts. Well, literally them along with Lori's clubs are really at each other's throats. Just because we have returning characters like Shannon, Ruby, and Sam doesn't automatically mean that any of this is good, to the point that with them being mostly afterthoughts due to the crisis that ended up happening towards the end of the episode, you can really tell that the two episode songs, one of which wasn't owned sophistically deep cuts while the other is, but we're gonna get to that later. Really, if deep cuts really wanted a club versus club storyline, they should have had the principal, who is really competent, have no aware of what is actually going on between two clubs. And it would probably make the reveal of these characters getting exposed way more believable. But considering that the principal herself isn't really taking it seriously, it just makes me question onto how any of this is supposed to be entertaining when it comes to club versus club versus club. A triple threat is one thing, but at the same time, a triple threat seriously needs to be a unique triple threat. And getting into the topic of Lori in deep cuts, not only that, her protecting her club could be one thing when it comes to future golfers. It doesn't really change the fact that when it comes to how she was written as the series progressed, I really feel bad for her in some extent when it comes to her not succeeding on her golf career, but on the other hand, it doesn't really change the fact that when she's back at Royal Woods, it really makes all of her golf passion mostly a waste, even though it shouldn't. Like, if I really felt bad when it comes to the 3 siblings in Deep Cuts, it would be Lori, but that's mainly the fact of how she was written when it comes to her not getting focused episodes for herself with other characters, mostly interacting with her when it comes to tips of pranking and with her coming back. Honestly, if I'm ever going to talk about Homeward Bound, it would have to be in my Toxic video. Mainly, it does center around the siblings themselves along with Lori's development. Really, if this episode attempted to make the crisis of having so many clubs can cause a huge budget crisis, it would be one thing if that was the main focus when it comes to Luna's goal of protecting her club, so that she could probably raise more money in the same veins as her other characters, mainly her sisters that raise money on their own. Like, you can really think that the idea of Luna raising money for herself, but also for her club, would be a huge step forward for her character. But on the other hand, if they did that plot now, in their way of apologizing of what they did in Deep Cuts, it would be too late, because the only talent that they keep showcasing involving Luna episodes is music. And I can totally see that some Luann fans found Luann a slightly better character than Luna, because Luann can contribute different things other than having one hobby, and that's mostly making people laugh. She has a theater club that she performs, and while it did happen several years ago when it comes to stage plight, I can see for a fact that there is potential on making different Luann episodes rather than her cracking jokes. But when it comes to Luna episodes, as much as I still like Luna more than Luann, I have to admit that the only episode that didn't center around music was the diary episodes from season 4. But that's literally it. I always think that there could have been different ways to give Luna a different talent, but considering that her passion of music is huge, which it's really part of her character, it still doesn't change the fact that she has no other attributes in comparison to Luann. Maybe it's the fact that they can't be able to think of different ideas for Luna in comparison for the other siblings, but on the other hand, I would say that if they're going to make more music episodes centered around Luna, they should at least have her perform a song, which she did in some occasions, even if some of them aren't good, but when it comes to the out of nowhere surprise, a song can instantly make it worthwhile in some capacity. And again, I am still going to save on the 2 songs for later in this comparison video. Okay, here is the moment you've been waiting for, while some of you most likely not. Lincoln being useless in Deep Cuts after telling Lori and Luna that dinner is ready, only for them to fight, and the following scene, well, he tells that dinner's ready, only for Luna, Luann, and Lori glaring at him, leading to him to leave Lori's bedroom. I did post that 10-minute video of them. All I can say is that they're really taking out their anger on Lincoln really unfairly, in the same veins as Brawl in the family, and yet at the same time, it doesn't really solve their issues whatsoever, to the point that with them causing the problem worse in this episode, they clearly don't even have any responsibility of showcasing those self-reflections. When it comes to Lincoln in stage combat, he, along with some of the other sisters, want no part of it, to the point that they put on their ponchos. For Lola, on the other hand, she is so thirsty for drama to the point that if she attempted to break up the feud between Luna and Luann, things will have been escalated more horribly. Truth be told, the idea of putting Lincoln into these episodes with him having no purpose sums up a lot that they clearly don't even know how to handle him by putting into these types of material. Like, in patching things up, he was pointless and doesn't need to be in it, but at the same time, his reasoning of getting the cookies alongside with Clyde is selfish, but at the same time, it at least has more of a reason than anything that he does in this episode, along with Apartment Complex. So, to change the subject when it comes to Lincoln himself, what this episode really came into mind is the fact that there was literally only one episode of Lincoln bonding with Luna and Luann separately. Luna's episode of Football's About to Walk, and when it comes to Luann's episode, Funny Business. All from season 1 back in 2016. Yeah. Compared to the April Fool's episode, well, Lincoln is going through torment along with his family, this is really the closest where we're going to have a Lincoln and Luann episode, along with Football's About to Walk when it comes to a Lincoln and Luna episode. And ever since then, we still haven't had an episode involving these characters hanging out when it comes to brother and sister bonding. Yes, Family Business isn't really a family bonding, since that Lincoln was really only doing one joke that really got him into the spotlight, leaving Luann into the shadows. But when it comes to the ending of the episode, they work together when it comes to celebrating Maggie's birthday party. Yeah. In my opinion, the fact that these two characters only had one episode to share with Lincoln and not much after season 1, I can really say for a fact that this is honestly a new first for me, and I can instantly see that the sibling relationship between Luna and Luann really makes sense in some extent. Granted, it doesn't excuse Luann's performance in Scene Steely, but still. When it comes to the crisis that ended up happening before the songs of these two episodes, when it comes to deep cuts, it's honestly far worse when it comes to the property damage that the three clubs caused. And really, if the principal itself wasn't so nice, they would have been all expelled. Granted, it wouldn't be a problem for Lori since that she ends up going to college after the season, but still. But in the actual episodes, they perform a fundraiser for people outside of school to perform, and I have to admit, this is actually foreshadowing when it comes to Mr. Grouse getting golf lessons from Lori. Honestly, this episode is slightly better when it comes to how Lori is portrayed when it comes to this type of foreshadowing, but when it comes to her college life, it's still no different. But aside from that, this, along with the song at the end, wasn't worth it. Hence why we head back to stage combat. Despite the fact that Luna can officially drive, which in the season 10 and 11 lineup as of now, though still isn't an episode centering around Luna getting her driver's license, she and Luann go to the Artist Grand to face off each other, but this leads to a huge Vanzilla crash. And after that crash, it leads to them making amends on the fact that it really got in their way when it comes to them facing off each other, and what Luann said it best, siblings come first. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that I wasn't so furious back in November, I would have just viewed this episode as a way of showcasing that siblings can only work without Lincoln. But on the other hand, that would be incredibly unfair towards this episode. This is the first ever Luann and Luna episode, and for what it's worth, Even though that it's debatable that the people who made this episode didn't listen to the fans of wanting a Luna and Luann episode, honestly, this is basically a gift out of luck for those people, and not in a bad way. I always think that this episode would have been something that would have happened way early on, but better late than never, along with the other fans of this episode that they could do if it's out of pure luck. This episode actually gave me more to think about when it comes to Luann and Luna's character, and in a good way, unlike in Deep Cuts. I always think that if we had this episode earlier, I would have probably found it as one of my favorite episodes. It's just that when they don't do these episodes early on, it just makes me have a different point of view of this dynamic. It's not a terrible dynamic, it was never a terrible dynamic, and the performance of Bra and the family didn't put a stain on the dynamic. Including Garage Band when they threaten Lincoln, that's really the problem. When you have these episodes later on, to the point that you don't have your old fans to be invested in these episodes if they actually were released early on, then that's really what makes this show difficult to enjoy when it comes to good ideas in good episodes being used later on rather than sooner. Granted, these are different people working on this episode in comparison to Deep Cuts. But on the other hand, when it's in favor of bad episodes like this, it really sums up a lot that people just really wanted more from this show when Season 4 came around. And considering that Season 4 really has a lot of bad episodes, with the good not outweighing the bad, it really sums up that they just couldn't be able to take these characters seriously due to how they've been written. Which leads to the songs of these two episodes. Now, Deep Cuts technically has two songs, with Luna performing Save the Music, which, for what it's worth, it's not one of the best songs in comparison to the Really Loud Music episode, but for what it is, it's alright. But when it comes to Stand Together, I'm sorry. Some people may enjoy this song, but on the other hand, it still didn't save Deep Cuts whatsoever. And if it was really owned, then they would have made the characters likable, along with the principal that actually knew their job more than Principal Withers. That's really the thing, that if you can't be able to make these types of material good due to the episode itself, it's not worthwhile. Even though that I'm never going to be a music critic, I have my taste, and the song itself needs to be worthwhile if the episode itself is good, which in Deep Cuts' case, it's not. In comparison to Stage Combat's song, sung by Luna and Luann, it was worthwhile. Granted, it's a shame that it didn't last long, but at the same time, the Stand Together song also didn't last long. So, for what it's worth, this is really a good song dedicated to the sibling dynamic of Luna and Luann. Even though it's less of a possibility that we're going to be getting another Luna and Luann episode after this, you have to admit that this was still worthwhile, that actually made the song worthwhile of its own. And I can instantly see that people who watched this episode when it was leaked really enjoyed it and really got the wish of fan service come true. With that being said, Deep Cuts gets a 4 out of 10, while Stage Combat gets a 9 out of 10. And with this not being a Cartoon Crisis 3 video, with the rating of bad episodes is 4.5 and below, it's mainly in favor of Stage Combat. It took a lot of thought to think about the dynamic between Luna and Luann, but that's mainly how I feel when it comes to thinking about the other dynamics in this show. I can say for a fact that if it wasn't for this episode airing recently while not thinking about the ideals in mind, I wouldn't be able to make this video at all. But since I have, keep in mind, you really need time and other ideals that have connections with each other in order to get invested with this dynamic of Luna and Luann. The only thing that we need when it comes to Luna's character is giving her a different hobby, other than music. And her getting her driver's license may be the closest for her development, but again, the season 10 and 11 lineups don't have her doing her driver's license, so we still need to wait longer.
You is the start of life for me.